Good evening, councillors and members of the public and those tuned in on YouTube. Just one housekeeping rule, if you could please, you just have your mobile phones or devices turned off to silent or just turned off. Thank you. This is the Ordinary Council meeting, 6th of August 2019. Mr Bird, we'll start off with item 1.
Recording and live streaming of council meetings. All council meetings are filmed with both video and audio being recorded. Video is focused on a specific area, however audio from the entire room is captured. By speaking during question time or at any time during the meeting, you consent to your voice and any comments you make being recorded. In common with all narrative during council meetings, verbal responses to congratulations, obituaries and question time will not be recorded in the written minutes. The reasoning behind recording council meetings is of course to hold us more accountable and improve transparency of council's decision making to our community. The full meeting is being streamed live on council's YouTube channel, which is Alpine Shire Council, and will also be available on the channel shortly after this meeting.
Thank you. Item 2, acknowledgement of traditional custodians. Could you please stand?
The Alpine Shire Council acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we are now on. We also acknowledge those people who have contributed to the rich fabric of our community and strive to make wise decisions that will improve the quality of life for all.
Thank you. Item 3, confirmation of minutes, Ordinary Council meeting 2nd of July 2019. Councillor Forsyth and Councillor Knapstein, thank you. Any discussion on that? All those in favour? That's carried, thank you. Apologies, there are nil. Obituaries and congratulations from my left. Councillor Forsyth, Councillor Roper, no. Councillor Nicholas, no. I'll just indulge in one. Today we had the passing of my first police commissioner, Mr Mick Miller. He was an absolute gentleman and professional police officer, and certainly someone to be looked up to. So our condolences to the Miller family for that. Pardon me. Item 6, declarations by councillors of conflict of interest. As per the minutes, Councillor Forsyth has declared a conflict of interest with respect to the following: La Fiera, Myrtleford Bush Market, Myrtleford Show and Shine, Swap and Meet, as he is a member of the Myrtleford Chamber of Commerce and the Rotary Club, and was not present for assessment for these applications. I have one as well for the Myrtleford Landcare Group. Are there others? Councillor Keeble?
I have one for the Men's Shed at Mount Beauty and the Kangaroo Hobbit, and I was not present at the assessment of the applications either.
That's Mr Bird.
Mr Mayor, in reference to item 8.3.3, I'd like to note that Alpine Shire Council is a part owner of Momentum One Shared Services, the company that is recommended the contract be awarded to. I'd also like to note that the Alpine Shire Council CEO, myself, is a director of Momentum One Shared Services as nominated by Council, and that this is an unpaid role. And that I have not been, also note that I have not been involved in the assessment of any tenders that relate to this item.
Thank you. And just so people understand what's going on prior to the meeting getting underway in its full sense, when we get to those items during the course of the meeting, you'll see some moving of chairs in the interest of good governance. Some councillors will leave the room whilst those decisions are being made. Questions on notice. Have one question on notice from Mr John Gibbons of Toowoomba South. He's inquiring in relation to the progress towards the development of amenities for Toowoomba South. Mr Jeremy, you've got a reply for Mr Gibbons.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Over recent months, we've been engaged in negotiations to purchase a parcel of land on the Kiwa Valley Highway in Toowoomba South for the purpose of establishing amenities. That negotiation has now concluded, and we were unsuccessful in reaching agreement on a purchase price with the sellers of that property. We continue to explore or look for new opportunities in Toowoomba South for land on which to establish some public amenities. The remaining options which we're pursuing that are active or live are establishing 24/7 access to the existing amenities at the Visitor Information Centre in Mount Beauty, and also a new suggestion come via UKVCA to have a look at establishing facilities on the corner of Embankment Drive in Jack Herberley Park.
Thank you. I'm sure Mr Gibbons will probably be watching, or our UKCVA representatives will take that back to him. Are there any questions from the floor? Mr Dyer.
My name is Ray Dyer and I reside at Ovens. I have two questions. My first question is to Natalie Cook. Natalie, when you were acting CEO, when my bike was removed...
Just a moment. We've gone through this before, Mr. Dyer. If you direct the question to me...
Wasn't directed to you, Mr Mayor.
No. We're going through a procedural matter. The matter is directed to me as the Mayor, the Chair of the meeting, and if the officer, through the CEO, wishes to reply to that, then we will
All right, I'll explain the situation then, Mr Mayor. I spoke to Natalie when Charlie Bird was on holidays, a day after my bike was removed from the Great Alpine Road at Ovens. And there was three questions that I put to Natalie. Number one was the bike, because there was no paperwork received, and she said that paperwork was coming in the mail. Never received it. It was returned to sender, I believe. I've never seen that letter. The second one was a culvert there that had a lid broken, that was there for 5 years, that had star pickets around it and mesh, orange mesh. It had just got repaired and it was broken again. The Shire did repair that very shortly after that, but there was another issue of a trip hazard in the park, a very big hole, which was reported about people walking through the park and tripping. A gentleman came down from the Shire and took photographs of the culvert and the hole. Now that hole has been there for 12 years. I'd like to know where the professionalism, when maybe the young lady that mows the park has reported it, because she did say to me she reported the sign at Myrtleford 18 months ago, when I reported it 12 months ago, and it's taken you 12 months to put it up. That's my first question.
No, there were three there.
There was only one, the hole. Mr Mayor, the hole in the park that's been there for 12 years,
right.
That the Shire spoke to me about.
Thank you. We'll take that one on notice in relation to our asset maintenance, Mr Jeremy. Thank you.
I'm more concerned about the accountability, Mr Mayor, because that's been over 12 months.
I'm not, so...
You're not worried about the accountability that the Shire's known about.
We'll take that on notice. I'm not getting into debate again with you.
Okay, my second question is to the CEO, Charlie Bird. Charlie, you haven't got back to me from last meeting as yet. And you haven't got back to me for nearly 2 years. 3 years, actually. I've been waiting for a meeting with you. The question is, when are we going to meet?
I'll take that up with Mr Bird. Thank you.
Charlie can't speak for himself.
Thank you, Mr Dyer. I understand that I do have a copy of some correspondence that was sent to you in relation to your bike. So I can give you a copy of that at a later date.
I sent a letter on the 13th of September to Charlie, so I'd like to talk to him about that before the bike was disposed of on the 14th. He hasn't even responded to that.
I'm sure that, anyway.
I think all the letters
we won't be going any further with.
I think all the letters I've put into the council, we should have a look into that, because you've told me time and time again, if you've got a problem, put it in writing, but you never respond.
Yep. Thank you. Any further questions from the floor? Thank you. Item 8, presentation of reports by officers. Mr Bird, item 8.1.1, proposed date for the September 2019 Ordinary Council meeting.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report seeks Council approval to reschedule the 3rd of September 2019 Council meeting to the 10th of September 2019. The reason behind this is that Council's annual financial statements must be presented to Council meeting for in-principle approval prior to being submitted to the Victorian Auditor-General's Office. This would ordinarily occur at the ordinary Council meeting in September. However, due to the availability of Council's external auditors, information will not be available until the week following. By revising the date of the ordinary Council meeting, this will negate the need to hold a special Council meeting for the sole purpose of the annual financial statements.
Seconded.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Pearce and
It's obvious what's required, but the reasoning why.
Councillor Forsyth. All those in favour? Carried. If just take note that there will be a change of meeting date. Thanks. Item 8.2.1, Mr Jeremy, cycling safety strategy.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report relates to the development of a cycling safety strategy for the Alpine Shire. Cycle tourism has grown significantly in the past 5 years, and it's forecast to more than double again in the next 7 years. And the growth in all the different modes of cycling by both visitors and residents is resulting in increased friction between different users of the road, so vehicular and cycling and pedestrian traffic. We were successful in securing a grant of $25,000 from the Traffic Accident Commission, the TAC, to develop the cycling safety strategy, and that's what we're presenting tonight for endorsement by Council. 2 key things we'll achieve through the strategy. One is to identify infrastructure improvements we can make around Alpine Shire to improve the safety of cyclists, and the second is to identify actions to communicate through an education programme to improve the safety of cyclists. So what we're asking...
Second.
Councillor, sorry, who was Councillor Keeble and Councillor Nicholas? Councillor Keeble?
Pretty straightforward, this one, but we all know that cycling is becoming a rather large pastime in our Shire, and it's good that we're having the cycling strategy report. I noticed in the consultation we didn't have local residents in areas where cycling has been an issue recently, but I'll just take that on note. I'll put that on notice that we didn't do that, but I'm assuming that at some stage they might be consulted.
Thank you, Councillor Keeble. It's a good observation, and it was a deliberate move not to very broadly engage on this topic, but rather to engage with the groups that had very specific knowledge of cycle-based safety. What we do intend to do during the year as part of our development of the event strategy is to do a much broader engagement with the community specifically around events, and that'll pick up a lot of the cycling events which bring a large number of cyclists into the town.
Councillor Nicholas?
I'd just like to add too that we're actually part of a group that advertises the North East as a cycling hub, so it's really important that we are focusing on the safety aspects of that. And also for any cyclists who are looking at the papers and might actually pick up the strategy, that the strategy contains some priorities at the end of it, which are not necessarily reflected in how they'll be handled by Alpine Shire. But it's still important things to do, and we'll put them in the pipeline as it says.
Thank you. Further comment? Councillor Knapstein?
I just have a general question about this is a cycling strategy and all of that, but do we have a broader one to do with pedestrians and traffic and how we're going to blend cars and pedestrians and cycles, because some of the pedestrian behaviour also leads to problems, or is that just regarded as something completely separate?
Thank you, Councillor Napstone. It's a good observation. The funding we received was very specific. For the TAC, it was a specific cycle safety strategy funding programme, so it didn't cover pedestrian and vehicular safety. And we did do some work last year, particularly in Bright, around the car parking plan, and that was much broader, as you'll remember, than just vehicle movement and car parking. That also looked at, to a degree, how we get pedestrians and cycles through the centre of Bright. I think what you've asked there, a broader strategy across Alpine-Shire, we haven't done that work as yet in terms of how all those different modes of transport, pedestrians, cycles, vehicles, how they all interact with each other.
Thank you. Any further comment? Councillor Keeble? Just no. Okay. Pardon me. Just take it to the vote then. All those in favour? Thank you. It's carried. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Pardon me. As Director of Assets mentioned, it was specific funding. However, some of the data that's come out, if you look at these traffic volume graphs and maps, I think that information could be very useful, because you've got things in here showing 1,000 to 2,000 volumes. I'm assuming that's on it's a daily traffic volume. So that's not just bicycles, right? So I think that's excellent, and that comes back to what Councillor Napstone's asking about movement within areas. Yeah. So the report's very good, and I'd recommend anybody who's watching or would like to, they should read into it. I think it's very good. Thank you.
Thank you. The vote's been taken, so we'll move on. 8.2.2, this is where we commence some musical chairs. Event funding program 2019 and 20.
I move to suspend standing orders.
That's so who's moving?
Nicholas?
Yes. Who's leaving?
Forsyth and Keeble, we need a seconder first.
You don't need to suspend standing orders if two are leaving.
Don't you?
Only if you're going to leave, have a new person in the chair. So for the next item.
I withdraw that.
No?
This is the advice from
This is our advice, is it, from our governance officer?
yes.
Well, we'll take the advice from the governance officer.
Sorry, I move to suspend standing orders.
Thank you. And we'll have a seconder. Councillor Pearce. There you go. All those in favour? Carried. So Councillor Forsyth and Councillor Keeble leave the council chambers at 7:18 p.m. Thank you. Righto. Here we go.
I move to reinstate standing orders.
Thank you. And Councillor Pearce, seconded. Yep, thank you. All those in favour? Carried. We continue to have a quorum. We're right. Who's doing the recommendation? Mr. Jeremy, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report relates to the allocation of financial sponsorship and the provision of logistical support to events through Council's 2019-20 event funding programme. This is an annual programme that we have, so this year we've budgeted $250,000 in total for event funding. We received 49 applications, and the cumulative request through those applications was just over $375,000. So council officers carried out the preliminary screening, and then a panel carried out essentially an assessment and provided recommendations on how to allocate the funding. So that panel had a member from the Bryden District Chamber of Commerce, member from the Upper Kiewa Valley Community Association, member from the Myrtleford Chamber of Commerce, youth representative from Bright, 2 councillors, myself as Director of Assets, and Council's Manager, Economic and Community Development and Event Development Officers to assist. The assessment panels recommended that 44 applicants receive sponsorship through the programme, as listed in the report, totalling $68,100 in financial sponsorship and an estimated value of $71,850 in logistics support.
So moved.
Councillor Nicholas, seconder. Councillor Napstone, thank you. Councillor Nicholas.
I think it's great that Alpine Shire supports groups to do things for their local areas and towns.
That's it. Councillor Knapstein.
It's always a challenge, but it's satisfied once it's done, and congratulations to all who were successful.
Yes, sure.
I'd also like to thank the people who contributed to the panel and the decision making, because it does take quite a long time to assess all the applications and try and make a fair judgment.
Okay. Further comments? No? Take it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Oops. The records show that Councillor Forsyth is back in the chamber at 7:21. Thank you. Now, 8.2.3, the Community Grants Program.
I move to suspend standing orders.
Councillor Nicholas and Councillor Pearce again.
I might have a conflict of interest here. No, I'm a member of the Historical Society of the Kura Valley. No, it had nothing to do with it. I don't think I have got a conflict of interest. Because I'm a member of the
Not if you're a member.
Historical Society. I'm noting the fact that I am a current financial member of the Kura Valley Historical Society.
Thank you. Duly noted. We'll just take it to the vote for the suspension of the standing orders. All those in favour? Carried. 7:22.
Too young to be a men's shed person.
It's just because you don't know how to use the new modern.
What, in the men's shed?
You do.
Oh, yeah.
What I wanted to think was simple. I can use a chainsaw. I can fix anything with that. Exactly.
Councillor Janus left the chambers at 7:22 p.m.
I wish he'd die quietly too, by the way.
I was looking for someone to move to reinstate standing orders.
I'll move to reinstate standing orders. I'll second that.
All those in favour?
Oh, sorry, that was broken.
I'll move. What?
Got to have a chairman yet.
Well, what's the point in having an appointed deputy mayor if they don't become the mayor straight away when the mayor's not here?
Because I'm right.
I'll move to elect Councillor Sarah Nicholas as chair for 8.2.3 Community Grants Program 2019/20. Thank you, Darryl.
Okay, now we are on to the rest of Community Grants Program 8.2.3. Moved by Councillor Roper, seconded by Councillor Forsyth.
Congratulations to all those successful in receiving funding from the largesse of the Alpine Shire and others.
Yes.
I would like to make special reference to, next page please, point number 5. There was a request put in from, I believe, the Bright Chamber of Commerce for some funding for Christmas decorations, Christmas lights, fairy lights, whatever, for this current year. My understanding is that money had been allocated to each of the three centres, Mount Beauty, Myrtleford and Bright, in previous years. And I believe that because this sits outside the community grants budget, I think this is an important one where a decision has been made by the sitting committee and in consultation with the executive as to how funds should actually be allocated for these decorations, bearing in mind that there is probably something in the pipeline that may eventuate next year. So I just put it back to the communities now to do something worthwhile and beneficial with these grants, especially Mount Beauty and Myrtleford that didn't even request them.
Any further comment? No.
Thank you.
Darryl?
Yeah. I've been watched these grants go through for many years now, and I still think they're a sort of a traditional way for council to interact with the local groups around our shire and with financial and logistical support. So I still have a bit of faith, a good faith in them, and well done for the people that spent all the time in allocating them.
Would officers like to contribute?
Thank you, Councillor Nicola. I'd just like to make a comment on the agenda that went up on Council's webpage on Friday. Had a couple of errors, so there were some cut and paste errors on the applications. Two of the applications that weren't successful didn't have a reasoning provided. I'd just like to point out that we've added that reasoning in the minutes here. So the two in question were, the first was the Upper Kiewa Valley Community Association application for interpretive signage for West Kiewa / Pebble Beach track. So we've included in the minutes an explanation for the reasoning why that wasn't funded, and also the Upper Kiewa Valley Regional Arts Association, which was for the Wolfgang's Magical Musical Circus. We've put in an explanation there. Thank you.
Thank you. Take it to the vote. All those in favour? Perfect. Yeah. Do you get Ron in first?
It's crook.
Councillor Janus and Councillor Cable re-entered the council chambers at 7:28 p.m. And Councillor Janus resumes his position as chair.
Well, it's having a good time out there without being on the chair. Moving on, 8.3.1 insurance portfolio. Ms Cook? No, 8.2.4. Yeah. Oh, there it is. 8.2.4. Tourism North East Memorandum of Understanding.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide some background information and to seek Council's endorsement for the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding with Tourism North East for the 1st of July 2020 to the 30th of June 2023. Tourism North East regarded as the leading regional tourism board in Victoria. Its success is evidenced by the significant growth in the visitation expenditure, 336 million in 2018, up 29% and 27% respectively on the previous 2 years. The strength and the success of TNE is a result of the commitment from each of the partner stakeholders. Through its commitment to TNE, a small organisation such as the Alpine Shire Council is able to benefit from leveraging off a significantly larger pool of resources and experience than it would be able to support with in-house resources. So the request of Council is that the Memorandum of Understanding between the Alpine Shire Council, partnering councils and the resort management boards to facilitate the operations of Tourism North East be endorsed by Council, that the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to sign the MOU, financial commitment detailed in the MOU of $38,500 per annum with CPI increases in year 2 and 3 be allocated in Council's future budgets for its annual membership contribution, and that the financial commitment for annual marketing and promotions activity to be undertaken by Tourism North East be allocated in Council's future budgets for the term of the MOU with annual expenditure of up to $200,000.
So moved.
Councillor Nicholas. Councillor Pearce. Councillor Nicholas.
There's no doubt that the connection and that we have with Tourism North East is great for Alpine Shire and probably the whole North East, but some of the figures that we've got are that from 2016 there's 206 million spent by visitors. In 2018 there was 336 million spent by visitors, so up 130 million in 2 years, which is fabulous because that brings our economy alive and vibrant. Makes it a really lovely place to live.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Yes, I concur with my dear colleague there, and I also like to mention that we are very lucky to have Tourism North East in control of a lot of our tourism stuff, and just acknowledge the hard work they do.
Thank you. Councillor Forsyth.
Just a simple question. This is an MOU beginning on 1st of July 2020. Why are we doing it now?
I'll take that one, Councillor Forsyth. So it's a good question, and it's good to be prepared for the next year, and importantly, it sends a very strong signal of Alpine Shire's council commitment to Tourism North East amongst a review of the regional tourism Victoria.
Okay, supplementary question to that. Because we're allocating it now, is it in this year's budget or next year's budget?
So the allocations would be for the next year's budget, not this year's budget. This is merely the authorisation to sign the MOU.
Thank you. Any further comment or questions? Is it true that this Tourism North East is the preeminent body that the state government are looking at for all the other tourist?
So the state government undertaking a review of regional tourism in Victoria and looking at the regional tourism boards, and discussions that I've had have indicated that Tourism North East is seen as the leading tourism board, which is excellent for the North East and excellent to be part of.
Yeah.
From me,
Yeah, Councillor Pearce.
therefore, could the Alpine Shire Council be seen as the grandfather of Tourism North East?
Alpine Shire Council is one of the funding partners. There's a number of there's 5 other councils in the North East. There's also 3 ski resorts as well. So we're just one of a number of partners.
It's okay. We are the grandfather.
Yes, Councillor Nicholas.
Being part of Tourism North East doesn't mean that the Alpine Shire Council and councillors don't recognise that there still needs to be a balance between having tourism as one of our main pillar of economic pillar and the rest of what we do in the Alpine Shire. So it doesn't exclude us from supporting agriculture and other aspects.
Absolutely not, I hope not.
I've got a rate bill today, you wouldn't think so.
Well, you can do the plate.
Any further comment? No, take it to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried. Now we get on to this one. 8.3.1 Insurance Portfolio 1920. Ms Cook.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report outlines Council's insurance portfolio for 2019 and 20 and seeks Council approval for the purchase of the recommended insurance policies. The first one is the work cover insurance. WorkSafe appoints a panel of agents to provide its work cover insurance through a tender process that then allocates Council to an agent from the panel. Council's work cover registration has been allocated to Exchanging Integrated Services that the recommendation relates to. I must flag, however, that I've just realised that there is an error in the recommendation for that work cover insurance. The $173,000 in the recommendation is predicated on a 5% early payment option, which Council is unable to avail itself of because we've missed the option date because of the Council meeting date. Therefore, the recommendation will be for a maximum of $183,000. And the second recommendation is to procure its other liability insurances through the Jardine Lloyd Thompson Party Limited brokerage to the total value of $252,000 for the year.
Seconded.
Councillor Keeble and Councillor Roper. Councillor Keeble.
An unfortunate necessary, well, the work cover's not unfortunate, we need work cover, that's okay. We need all the insurance, just a necessary part of doing business, even if we don't agree sometimes with how they get to the figures, especially the second one in regards to assets. It's a pity we've missed that deadline of time, but anyway, that's the, we get that.
Councillor Roper.
I concur with Councillor Keeble's sentiments. Insurance is a necessary part of doing business in today's environment, and with the uncertainty and weird weather events we've received recently, we've been well served with our insurance to repair damage to some of our assets.
Thank you. Any further comment? No. Councillor Keeble, nothing. Take it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried. I just note from my knowledge with the being on the MOV and the insurance connections there that the insurance market certainly is hardening, and particularly in the local government sector, and it is becoming more difficult to obtain insurance in this area. So I think we're well covered. Could probably still ask them if, not our fault we missed the deadline.
Oh, absolutely, we can liaise back with the company.
Yeah. 8.3.2 Community Satisfaction Survey. You, Ms Cook, again?
The annual Community Satisfaction Survey is coordinated by Local Government Victoria. The survey consists of phone interviews with 400 residents. Surveys were conducted during February and March 2019, and results are then summarised through what they call an index score, which is a weighting of average of how many respondents respond against each possible survey question. A high index score indicates a more positive weighted response.
So moved.
Councillor Roper. Councillor Keeble. Councillor Roper.
I find this community satisfaction survey a bit of a waste of time. It's too small a selection size. There is really no way to compare it to previous community satisfaction surveys. It's something we have to do, and I personally don't know. It is actually a tick the box process, and I actually disagree with us actually having to do it.
Thank you. Councillor Keeble.
So I noticed in some of the performance measures that most of the measures Alpine Shire is above last year and above small rural and statewide. It is what it is. There's probably not enough. It's legislated, it has to be done. What was the cost of it? I'm just trying to find that there. There it is there. So it's $8,700 cost to the Shire. That it's mandatory reporting. So I do agree that if there's a high cost for something that's gives us information. Yep.
Further comment? Councillor Nicholas.
Thank you. I agree. It's high cost for questions that we probably wouldn't ask if we spent $8,000 on a survey ourselves. But I don't think the results are completely unusable or useless. And I think that it's good to see how we sit amongst the other shires, because they're surveyed in the same way, and we've been surveyed in the same way for a number of years, so the results are comparable. I don't think it hurts to look at where we've changed over time, even if it is a small sample. In statistics, that usually works. And I think that where we do seem to have fallen from past years are areas that we do have time to do some work into the future, getting ready for the next council plan. So it's quite good that people are telling us that.
Thank you. Any further comment? Councillor
Just a question, Councillor Roper. If it's useless or whatever, is there anything that we can do to improve it so that it becomes more useful?
Well, the first thing, if you wanted a decent community survey, you would actually have to spend more money than this. It'd be targeted. You ask the same selection of people each year, and you'd ask people that actually had an interaction with council, and who actually slightly understood what they were actually, the questions they were actually being asked. So I disagree with what Councillor Nicholas said. Realistically, and we could have it's not a good survey. We shouldn't hold a lot of store on it. Does it compare us to other councils? You can argue that one yes or no, because it comes down to actually who was actually called and whether they actually have had an interaction with council or not, or they actually even understand the questions that are being asked of them. And I would even suggest now, and I'm suggesting that they don't even use a mobile phone, that they actually ring a landline, and percentage of the vast percentage of the community use a mobile phone, don't have it, they use a mobile and don't use a landline. So I think it's getting smaller and smaller.
Thank you. Any further comment? No. None?
Yeah. 40% of the surveys were undertaken on mobile phone numbers.
Well, there you go. You can. But you can't. After I've had the say, you can't have a say.
Should have moved it, shouldn't I?
Weren't quick enough. Councillor Nicholas. Take it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Item 8.3.3, provision of labour hire and accompanying technology solutions for councils' seasonal outdoor swimming pools and river pools.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to award a 3-year contract for the provision of labour hire services for our seasonal pools and our river pools. Council approval is required due to the value of this contract. In May 2019, Council entered into a joint tender for the provision of pool management services. The purpose of this tender was to explore market options for the management of our seasonal pools and the Bright Sports Centre. The tender called for proposals for either management models or labour hire solutions as separable parts, and separable parts for our swimming pools and the Bright Sports Centre. Submissions received were very different in nature, and we, as was declared by the CEO at the beginning of the meeting, we were well aware that there was a potential conflict of interest in this case. Therefore, we also requested that the Council's Audit Committee chairperson was an independent evaluation member on our tender evaluation panels. Following a comprehensive assessment, the tender from Momentum One Shared Services is deemed to present the best value and services for Council in delivering the seasonal pool services, and the recommendation is to award a contract to them for the provision of labour hire and accompanying technology solutions for a 3-year plus 3-year option contract.
Councillor Forsyth, and who was on my right? Councillor Keeble. Thank you. Councillor Forsyth.
Reading into the submissions that were...
John? Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, reading into the submissions that were received, it would appear that Momentum One had the best model, the model that best suits Alpine Shire in facilitating our pool guys, basically. So Yeah, I think it's good. It's straightforward.
Councillor Keeble?
On an unrelated matter, I think it's good that we're looking to get our pool services and staffing sorted through Momentum One and have it under good authority that the Mount Beauty pool will open on time this year.
We won't ask for comment. Thank you. Take to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Assembly of Councillors. Councillor Pearce and Councillor Nicholas. That's item 9. Any discussion, folks? None? All those in favour? Yep. Good. Carried. Thank you. General business from my right. Councillor Knapstein. Councillor Keeble.
No.
Councillor Nicholas. No. Councillor Roper.
Yes, I have some. General business. And it concerns the removal and the non-replacement of a bin at the south-east entrance to Myrtleford. You quietly die, please, Ron. There used to be a bin opposite or near Buffalo Farm Equipment and the trailer hire or trailer sale business in Myrtleford.
Jones Park. Jones Park. Area?
No, it was Buffalo Farm Equipment, trailer business, and then Delizzi Cafe. Yep. So in the vicinity there, close to the Buffalo Farm Equipment, there was a single bin on a stand with the wooden slats round, not these big square things we have now. It's been removed by council, and I am wondering whether there is going to be another bin to replace the one that was removed, or what are we going to do about a bin, because council is about roads, rates and rubbish, and this is a rubbish issue. So I'm wondering about whether we will be installing another rubbish receptacle in that part of Myrtleford.
Thank you. I think Ms Cook is...
Could I just add to that that if we do, could it please be green, recycling and landfill?
Can I please take that on notice? And I'll follow up with the Waste Department to see what's happened with the removal of the bin.
That'd be fantastic. I was presuming that the receptacle for the waste that we were putting in would have had the 3 components that Councillor Nicholas was talking about, because unusually it's rare to find one that is only single these days.
Thank you. Any further business, Councillor? No? Councillor Forsyth.
Currently, we aren't collecting for 3 different things anyway. So until that happens, I don't see we can actually have 3 separate bins. Coming back from Europe, they have 4, and they have different colours on the lids, so you know what you're doing. They have different coloured bags in each of them, so you know what you're doing. That's not my general business. My general business is probably...
bin though?
Eh?
I'm going to get some support for the bin in the southeast of Myrtleford.
You go a little bit further opposite Dalston's. There's 2 bins there, but I'll give you support for it. I've just noticed that the sign above the door over here is blank. Is that something that's just being replaced and hasn't been fixed just yet? There's one out the front as well.
So we don't know where to go.
I think it's something we could take on notice with Mr Jeremy.
Thank you, Councillor Forsyth.
What's missing?
The exit sign.
Yes. Oh, the exit sign. Oh.
If I can comment, when we had the office renovations, we had a team of people in here, and we closed off that door. It was no longer an emergency exit, so my suspicion is we removed the sign and it hasn't been replaced.
There's one straight out the front in that wall.
We'll do a check. Thank you, John.
Councillor Pearce.
Just one minor, well, not minor really, but I spoke to you about this from far away. Just on the BMX park that's in the events park up in Bright here, in the talk of removal or relocation. I was just interested how things are going with that.
Mr Jeremy, you've got some...
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. We're currently working through with a number of different stakeholders to determine what the future of the BMX track is. The proposal that's gaining the most traction based on feedback from the community and the different user groups is to relocate the BMX track from its current location down into the Rotary Pines area of Pioneer Park, to establish a facility that's not necessarily equivalent to the current BMX track, but to work with the community and the user groups and the cycle club to determine what kind of cycle facility there will best complement the other facilities around Brighton. So it could be a skills track or something similar, but we'll essentially work with the community to establish what's going to be the best added value in that location, so that we're catering for a broad range of cyclists.
That's fine. Thanks for your update. Thanks, Will.
Mr Mayor, I do have another question, sorry.
Yes,
Again.
Councillor Keeble.
Two questions, if I may. Councillor Roper has reminded me about rubbish, and I agree. It would be nice to know what's going wrong with that bin, where it's gone. We've had a survey of the green rubbish, and we may have spoken about this at our last meeting, but just any updates on the process of where we're at with letting the community know the outcomes of the green waste survey?
Thank you, Councillor Keeble. We've received a fabulous response to our survey on the green waste and organics waste collection service. Well over 2,000 responses received. A large proportion of this responses has been on paper. Our community was very engaged with the paper component of the survey. So those surveys have needed to be manually collated and entered into the system. So we're we're undertaking that work, and we're analysing the data now. We will be bringing a recommendation back to council. We're targeting October council meeting to bring a recommendation to council on the next steps of that survey.
My second question is, obviously there's been a lot of information in the media about SKM. I know that we don't have SKM, but is there any concern that our residents should have in regards to the collection of our recycling bins in our shire?
We have a combination of contracts for our recycling. So our curbside recycling is collected by Cleanaway, our curbside recycling, and that is taken to their processing centre in Albury. We follow up with Cleanaway periodically. They are not affected by the SKM closure. They have their own end markets for that product. Our other contracts through our recycling that we collect at our transfer stations. So we collect various parcels of recycling through our transfer stations, for example, cardboard. We have different contracts in place with providers for that, and those contracts have not been affected by the SKM closure either. They have their own markets in place.
Thank you. No further general business? Thank you. Item 11, motions for which notice have previously been given. There are nil. And item 12, reception and reading of petitions. There are nil. Item 13, documents for sealing. Councillor Forsyth and Councillor Pearce. Thank you. All those in favour? Yep, good, carried. There being no further business, I declare the meeting closed at 7:53 p.m. Thank you to those attendees from across the hill again, and safe journey home.